Good day, everyone. This is Yozo here with a Blue Eyes deck profile for you. So we're just going to start right off. So first we got 3 Blue Eyes White Dragon. Obviously he's the whole point of our deck. Our deck revolves around him and using him as synchro or Xyz fodder. Next we got 2 Alternative White Dragon. Alternative White Dragon is just a nice, easy special summon, and again we could use him as easy material for rank 8 Xyz or use him as synchro material for either Cloud Castle or Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Additionally, he can blow up one card on the field, which is always a plus. And then although this prevents him from attacking, he could then be overlaid into, say, a Felgrand, Thunder, number 107 or number 23. Then we got 2 White Spirit Dragon. White Spirit Dragon is our on-demand MST, and one fun play with him is if your opponent tries to bottomless him, assuming they have a monster on their side of the field, you could actually use his ability to be tributed, and then be able to summon a Blue Eyes from your hand. So it adds a nice little interactions like that, so you can avoid things like Fiendish, Breakthrough, and so on and so forth. Then we got Ancient White Stone. Ancient White Stone is primarily how we get White Spirit Dragon out. Additionally, it can be used as a nice, easy level 1 tuner, and we could use it to recur some resources in the late game, specifically Alternative White Dragon, since it is a Blue Eyes card. Next, we have 3 Maiden with the Eyes of Blue. Maiden is how we get our Blue Eyes out, primarily from our decks and graves, back onto the field and ready to fight. She is wonderful in this deck, and Mausoleum is the perfect complement to her. Next, we got 3 Sage Knight with Eyes of Blue. Sage Knight is here for, it combos hard with Maiden, combos with Ancient White Stone, and even combos a bit with Priest. He or she, I don't really know, can get you White Spirit from the deck, or even a regular Blue Eyes from the deck. And which is, additionally, you could normal summon her, search out a Maiden, a Priest, whatever you need at the time, and that's always helpful. Next, we have Priest with the Eyes of Blue. Priest is a card that is good for the late game. You want to maybe discard him off for Melody, or say normal summon him, add Sage Knight, then use Sage Knight's ability on him in order to bring out a Blue Eyes, a White Spirit, or whatever it may be, and then just sit on Priest and wait for the ideal play, or when you really need him, to just bring a Blue Eyes back from the grave. Then we have 2 Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler is searchable by Sage Knight, which is kind of ludicrous, but it's awesome at the same time. Additionally, it's just here to say no to your opponent during their turn, because this is a deck that does suffer a bit against monster effects. So you don't want your opponent OTKing you right away, and this sometimes can slow them down enough. Though we do have other tools to prevent getting OTK'd, and we'll get into that shortly. Next, we got 1 Jar of Avarice. This is the only trap in the deck. I run it as a 1-of because it is very good at the late game. It is excellent. You get to throw any 5 cards in your graveyard back into your deck for basically free. Additionally, there have been times where I'd have more than 5 cards in my grave, and my opponent is about to start their turn. I just flip this over, put 5 cards in, and draw and pray, get an Effect Veiler, and what do you know? I could stop a Norden play, a Ptolemaeus, of whatever they want to do. Moving on, we got 3 Trade-In. Trade-In is your draw engine. You obviously want to discard pretty much any of the level 8s. Even alternative, you want to hold on to a little more because it does have more use in hand as opposed to grave. Sometimes you're in just rough situations where you really need to pitch anything you can. Then we got 3 Melody of Awakening Dragon. Melody is here to just search out alternative and Blue Eyes in 1 easy step. Additionally, the ideal play is to pitch Ancient White Stone for Melody, and then you could just get a free White Spirit Dragon at the end phase, which is always a plus. Then we got 1 Silver Scry. I only play the 1-of because it's a good card, but the problem is Gospel exists, and but it is a quick play. So I mean, you could set it, you could sit on it a bit, you could say use it to bring back White Spirit, and then White Spirit will remove a spell or trap from your opponent's side of the field, which is good for disrupting decks that rely, say, on field spells or even continuous spells. So it's good for that. Then we got 3 Gospel of Revival. This lets you target any of our level 8 dragons, including Alternative when he has been special summoned correctly. So he helps out with a lot with that. And then with Gospel, you can remove it from play in order to save your dragons. And it says monsters. So if they Dark Hole, if they Raigeki, you could remove 1 copy and all your dragons will be fine, which is a lovely, lovely card. Then moving on, we got Twin Twister. Twin Twister is just because this deck does not like back row at all, and especially with Solemn Notice coming out very soon. Ideally, again, you want to either pitch Priest or the Ancient White Stones, preferably the Ancient White Stones. Because if you can bring out a White Spirit at the end phase of your opponent's turn, yeah, it's pretty kind of MST from the deck. That's fair. It is. Anyways, then we got 2 Where Art Thou. Where Art Thou just gets plays going sometimes, because sometimes you'll say you'll only open with a Maiden, you'll only open with Sage, you'll only open with Ancient, and nothing else to really play off that. With Where Art Thou, you could search a level 1 monster, again including Effect Veiler, which is always nice in those tricky situations. But if you didn't normal summon the monster, which most of the time you're not going to be, you pay 2,000, which kind of hurts. Though honestly, this 2,000 cost, it seems steep at first, but honestly, you'll realize that it's not too bad. Although one tip is don't activate both in one turn because the damage does stack. Then 1 for 1. Honestly, you would play this card as many copies are legal. If it went up to 3, I'd honestly squeeze 3 into here because it is a very good card. Again, more ways to discard Ancient White Stone and to get out Maiden faster. 1 Soul Charge. Soul Charge is just a silly card in this deck because you can make unbreakable boards of like Felgrand, Azure Eyes, and like Blue Eyes Spirit, and it's just silly. 1 Terraforming just to search out our field spell, Light Mausoleum out quicker, and just for a little bit of deck thing. Then 3 Light Mausoleum. You'll want to see this within your opening hand or so. Sometimes you don't want to see multiple. I have had times where I saw multiple copies and I was just like, oh god, please no. But overall, it's a very useful card and it triggers Maiden. It sets up your grave. Although one thing about it is it can't send White Spirit to the grave. Even though White Spirit's a normal dragon on the field or in the grave, or sorry, in the hand and in the grave, it's not in the deck, unfortunately. Similar to Gemini's, but that's a rant for another day. Then you can tech Burst Stream of Destruction in the deck, I suppose. I've seen some people do it. It works out all right, I hear. But for me personally, I just don't feel the need to. Then moving on to the extra deck, we have one of the Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragons. This makes Fluffles cry. It just makes them cry a lot because, yeah, it doesn't matter how many materials they use to make their fusions and how buffed up they are because they're going down. But unfortunately, this card it's only good as a one of, because if you have it any more than that, well, I mean, it's really not useful. It doesn't have much protection to it. It's just 2 attacks all monsters, and if it doesn't kill a monster, you get to banish that monster instead, which is a pretty nice effect, but it's got niche uses in a sense. Then we got Black Rose Moonlight Dragon. Moonlight Dragon is lovely to summon off White Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, and oftentimes you could use White Spirit Dragon to disrupt plays. This is a mandatory effect because when it says if this card is special summon, and then you get to bounce a card, so it doesn't matter where in the chain you are, you could always use this. And another thing about Gospel of Revival is that this thing would, if you say summon this thing off Blue Eyes Spirit, Blue Eyes Spirit effect says that this has to get destroyed at the end of the turn. Well, fun fact, if you use Felgrand's ability, or Gospel of Revival, you can prevent this thing from being destroyed, which is nice because Black Rose Moonlight is a very nice stunny card, especially when you want to slow your opponent down a lot. Next, we got one Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. This is something I'm testing out a bit. Uh, it's just we got a level 7 we can bring out easy. We got level 1 tuners. Why not? It's a bit of a ludicrous card, and we can make it fairly easily. But in the meantime, while we are waiting for Shining Victories and stuff, I would just probably substitute this with a regular Stardust Dragon. Possibly. Or Stardust Spark. Your choice, really. Then Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. Blue Eye Spirit Dragon is a godsend for the deck. It prevents your opponent from going off a lot if, say, they're playing any kind of pendulum deck. It bottlenecks them so hard. Then it can negate things like Damage Juggler in the graveyard. So that is just absolutely lovely. And then this thing can just be used to bring out any light dragon type synchro monster that doesn't have the claws, can only be synchro summoned. So ideally you want to either go for Azure Eyes or you want to go for Moonlight Dragon or a few other tech choices of your choosing. Then Azure Eyes is just a great card. It prevents your cards from being targeted. It prevents your cards from being destroyed. It's just good to sit on, especially say your opponent isn't playing pendulums. You could summon this guy. Say you discarded the Ancient Light Stone at the beginning of your turn. Well, then you get your White Spirit, your White Spirit Dragon. So you got 2 dragons on your side of the field. Great. But your opponent could really disrupt this field. So as soon as their standby phase comes, you just activate this guy's ability, go into Azure Eyes, then your dragons are protected for the turn, which is just awesome and kind of busted. Especially since, while, say, the following turn, on your turn again, they try to Solemn Warning your Azure Eyes' ability to bring a normal dragon from the grave. They can Solemn it and negate the special summon. They can't destroy Azure Eyes, though, because Azure Eyes will be immune to destruction. This deck has a lot of silly things you can do like that. It's awesome. Then one Cloud Castle. Cloud Castle is mainly for a rank 9 play, or just to kind of slow down your opponent or flood the field. It's your choosing, really. Then onto the Xyz, we got one number 23 Lancelot, Dark Knight of the Underworld. This is your Gaga Cowboy. This can end games very easily. And not only that, it can technically negate things like Damage Juggler, Battle Fader, Karibo, if anyone plays that still. So it's very nice in that regard. And additionally, if your opponent only has like no cards or 1 card in their hand, you can just make this sit on it and enjoy their salt because they can't make a move. They can't make a move, and you'll probably win the following turn. One Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand. This is probably the best rank 8 in the game. It is awesome to just sit on as a turn 1 play. Not your most ideal play, mind you, but it's a good play nonetheless. So you could just make him, and you could either use his ability offensively or defensively, in the sense that you could either negate the opponent's monster's ability, or even negate attack, or even negate like attack boosting or based effects, or you could use it to, say, make it immune to a Dark Hole that your opponent drops, or Raigeki, or whatever. Speaking of field clearing, Thunder End Dragon. Thunder End Dragon is awesome. Unfortunately, he could be only made with 2 level 8 normal monsters. So you can only make him with 2 Blue Eyes. And that's kind of it. This is by no means a terrible summoning restriction, but at the same time, it does inhibit some of your plays. But being able to have an on-demand rank 8 nuke is just so good. I've busted boards of Utopia the Lightning with the Cyber Dragon Infinity and Rafflesia because I can bait out things and then finally go into Thunder End Dragon and just kill everything in one sweep. Although Thunder End Dragon can be taken out for other tech choices that you may be willing to choose over ones I've made. But another good substitute to that is number 107, Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon. Again, another card to make Fluffle players cry. For those who don't know, because this isn't a very well-known card, you detach one material at the beginning of your battle phase, only your battle phase, negates all effects of all face-up monsters currently on the field, and their attack and defense return to their normal attack and defense. Then every time your opponent opponent card effect resolves, this card gets 1,000 extra attack and can make a second attack, but only up to a maximum of 2 attacks, unfortunately. But nonetheless, it's this effect, the effect negation, that's permanent. Monsters permanently lose their effects, so it's sort of like an on-demand skill drain if you really need it. Unfortunately, it does also hurt your monsters, so you can negate your Azure Eyes, you can negate everything of yours, your Maiden, your White Spirit, which is a bit annoying, but it ultimately is a pretty good thing. And usually lots of people will try to activate a card and say they'll use I've had this happen a couple times. Say they'll have a Maiden on their side of the field. You bring this out, activate its effect. They'll try to activate Maiden. Maiden is negated. Well, they just took 4,000. Then you got to make a second attack. They take another 4,000 to the face, and you literally won the game in one turn. So it's a good little sleeper card that no one really sees coming and can really help you out. Additionally, as I said, makes things like Bujin's Cry, makes things like Frightfur's Cry a lot, and it's good fun overall. Additionally, you can use it to rank up into Full Armor Photon Dragon, but we'll get into that next. But before that, we have number 62 Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon. This card is only here to rank up into Full Armor Photon Dragon, because I feel 107 it's too good of a card to be used purely as rank up fodder, and I like being able to have both it and Full Armor Photon Dragon accessible at different times in the game. So Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, that's all it's here for. It's just here to be ranked up into Full Armor Photon Dragon. And Full Armor Photon Dragon is really nice because it's a 4K beat stick that can also pop a face-up card a turn. That's really all it does. And then for our final Xyz, we have the rank 9, surprisingly, Phantom Fortress Enterblithneer, which is a bit of a mouthful. Anyways, it's 2 level 9 monsters. This thing is Xyz Trish. That's the best way to put it. It is Xyz Trish. So you can either detach one Xyz material and activate one of these. Banish a card from your opponent controls, banish a card from their hand, banish a card from the graveyard, or banish the top card of their deck. So this thing, along with this kind of goes with Lancelot on being a game ender. Because your opponent could have like one really big boss monster that can't be targeted or has like 5,000 attack. Well, if you bring this thing out, this is non-targeting banishing, so I have won games with it. Then on to the side deck. This isn't a super idealized side deck, and this obviously isn't adjusted for the meta. This is more cards you may want to consider in your own build, so we'll just get right into it. 2 Maxi, Maxi is either boom or bust depending on the deck you face against. Obviously against Yosenju, even though that's completely irrelevant at this point, it's not going to do much. But against things like Raid Raptors, it's going to net you a lot of advantage or put the brakes on your opponent's plays. Honest is something that I see a lot of other people play, but I prefer. Honestly, if I were to play Honest, I would drop the Effect Veilers and swap them out for each other. But overall, I feel Effect Veiler is stronger in the majority of matchups as opposed to Honest. Then we got Malefic Stardust Dragon. Malefic Stardust Dragon, it's a level 8, so trade-in target. It can be used to synchro into Cloud Castle, and it is never dead technically because you would also have to side in regular Stardust Dragon in order to use it. So you would just, as long as you had the field spell up, you're good to go, and this thing would protect the field spell. Unfortunately, again, it would prevent your other cards from attacking. Although if you bring out this and number 107, well, you kind of fix that. Then start a Spark Dragon. This is another target for Blue Eye Spirit Dragon. And again, it could be say synchroned from Black Rose Moonlight into this. Me, I don't play it just because I'm not really that big of a fan, but it's something I go back and forth on. Then Stardust Dragon, mainly for the Malefic, but I mean Stardust Dragon is, even though destruction is kind of irrelevant nowadays, it's still not a bad card to have. Michael the Arch Lightsworn. Well, I mean, it banishes cards. That you pay 1,000, banish a card. It's decent. Then these three cards kind of all go together: Dragon's Mirror and Blue Eyes Ultimate and First of the Dragons. Dragon's Mirror is stupid in this deck. I'm not gonna lie, but it's not something I can make room for, honestly. It's you could either make First of Dragons, which, in case you don't know, is unaffected by monster effects, and can only be destroyed by battle with a normal monster. So unless you're playing the mirror, they're not getting over this. And I mean, you could even against, well, I mean, they're banned now, but Shaddoll Construct, you could sit on this and the Shaddoll Construct couldn't do anything to it. Which is what I did with previous incarnations of this deck, but that's another story for another time. Then Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, it's Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. It's themed, it's a beat stick, and it's just glorious if you could bring it out, especially with the Dragon's Mirror play. And again, another thing with Dragon's Mirror, this is considered Blue Eyes White. This is considered Blue Eyes White Dragon while it's on the field or in the grave. So you don't even have to banish all of your regular Blue Eyes to get this out, or even this guy, Twin Burst. All right, but that's enough about them, I suppose. Keeper of the Shrine had a spot, but at this point I feel he's too slow, especially since now we're not running Dragon Shrine anymore in this deck. Maybe in the Felgrand version of the deck where you are running Dragon Shrine, but in this version it's just not used anymore, so just putting it off to the side for now is good. Then 2 Forbidden Lance. Lance is a decent card, especially with big monsters like this that don't exactly have much spell or trap protection. Even though Twin Twister does lighten the load, because you can now blow away 2 spells or traps. It's Lance is helpful, but I just with the 2 white spirits, I don't think you'll have too much trouble clearing out spells and traps. Then an extra Jar of Avarice. 2 Jar of Avarice you get to see pretty often. 1 is more of a late game, or you get unlucky and draw it early game. So that's kind of up to you. Overall, though, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I will be happy to answer them. Then, yeah, that's it. Have yourselves a damn good day, and this is Yozoi signing out.